before and after that were some very harsh times. But this was the trine. So here you can see it. I don't usually work with trines, but when I work with the progressions, I can see each, as soon as it touches an aspect to a planet, it brings that, it puts the some Martian energy onto that planet, brings that energy together with it. So, and then when we moved to the new school, I was in grade 1, I had a Russian gym teacher who liked my spirit and had me on the team, and he got me on the grade 11 gym team, and we toured all over Quebec. They needed a little kid that they could throw around to do circles in the airs and catch and things like this, and he taught me all those things. It was very, it was great. If I'd had him for a lot more number of years, I probably would have been a gymnast through my life. But my family wasn't. He had escaped from the Russian Iron Curtain, and he was not allowed to stay in Canada in any place for more than 2 years. They were so afraid of Russians back then. In any case, we are going through our life. Who knows what happened in the world? The same aspects happen everywhere in the world. You know, like I'm not the only person who was born at that moment. You know, so like, oh, it's happened around. So you can take other people who have similar charts. You would have, I mean, you can have charts within the same day, and you'd all have your Mars pretty close, and this would be following through. So one of my astro twins, born the same day, same year as me, is Suzanne Summers. So if I was a woman, I would have been like Suzanne Summers. Okay, but she would have had similar timings. She would have had these planets and these things, wouldn't hit the angle at the same time, would be different ascendant, but it comes through that. I've met 3, 4 people born the same day, same year as me, and 3 are professional astrologers. So it's, I was laughing. I thought, well, it's the only place where you can find a job where you're getting paid for insulting or looking at the difficult things in people and trying to work with it. It made good use of my energy. And we all have similar nature, but when we're in the same room, we walk on eggshells because we don't want to use our judgment against each other. So anyway, so it hit the moon, then it went up and it goes over the star. I'm not sure what happened when it went over this star, but it came, then it made a semi-square to Neptune, and I started scouts and I was delivering on a paper route. But there was still, even at that time, there was, if I think about it, my brother was sick and then my father was drinking. There was a lot of difficulties in the family of a Neptune sort at that time. But these are the things that stood out to me that I had in my history. Like I said, as I think of it, then I reflect back and say, oh yeah, now I can see the Neptune things a bit more there now. So you're continually evolving and growing your history with your progressions. When I hit my IC, I left home. I was fed up. I left home. I left school. I started traveling. I finished high school. I started traveling, writing poetry, hitchhiked down the West Coast, across the desert, Mojave Desert, and then over to Phoenix, up to Calgary, and back to Montreal. And went back to university. So for the first time, I got freedom in doing my own thing as the Mars hit my IC. Then I went back to university, but it didn't last. I didn't finish the second year. And by the time Mars came up and hit my my Venus, I had just left San Francisco. I came back to Montreal. I had started chanting, and then I left for England on my way. I didn't know it was on my way to India at that time, but that was leaving the continent. That was a big turning point because I didn't feel I was wanted. So like my Mars was on my Venus, and you think it'd be really popular, like most central time. No, I was disconnected, and I felt something was wrong, and I had to try and solve it. There's expression, a mystical expression. It's either you're in love or you're rectifying the situation. If you're not in love, it's not tolerable. You have to adjust the situation until you find love again. I mean, really, we can't be separate from love, but we can think we are. We can behave like we are separate from it. We have to learn how to bring it back. So as Mars goes along, it hits different things. I built a special, big, beautiful I-Ching table. It was like a big coffee table, a big round coffee table. In the middle, there was an inlaid turtle with the trigrams inlaid around it, on it, and I built it and made it. I gave it to this lady, and then after I gave it to her, after I gave it to her, we had a bit of fight and never saw her again. I never heard from her again. But anyways, it was a special thing I did, and that was when the Jupiter was hitting the Jupiter and the Moon and the Ascendant. There's 3 aspects there. The squaring the Ascendant, the relationship was disruptive of the relationship. Coming from the 6th house, anyways, we'll come along. You can keep going in, and there's so many pieces of information. It's almost too much information, but you're working with your history to make some seeming sense, and you're developing. Each time you go through, it's like a good story. You understand it a little bit better next time. You understand it a little bit better next, and you see a bit more of it each time you go over this. So every time I teach the progressed classes, it really expands. Because other than that, I'm working with progressions on and off, and just as I go along. But when I'm doing the progressed class, we're doing our whole lifetime. So over 50 years of teaching, I don't know if this is the 6th or 7th time or 8th or 9th time that I've going through all of these things. And I don't know how to teach it other than showing this is how I've gotten so much information from it. And I have to show you, you have to try and tap it for yourself. And by organizing material properly, it's set up to go over this again and again and be able to see it. So when it hit trine my Venus, my Saturn, I entered a bookstore and I moved. Yeah, I made a big move. So that was lucky. I found a place, but there were difficulties that came up. In the end, I had to put legal proceedings against people to go over the store and stuff. But that's as it came up to semi-square to Sun, hit the Neptune, and so yeah, I started seeing wife number 2. So these were all these things over a short period, 2 and 2, 3, 4. But that's over a year or 2 of time, a year and a half of time. So when I went away, Neptune opposing the nodes. I was staying at I had a place to let someone else come and move into the studio, and it was not good. It was difficult with didn't get along with my wife. It was a difficult thing. It was the wrong move, but it inevitably was part of bringing about the end of the relationship. Well, not the end. It bought me. I bought a place up near just out of Toronto on the lake. So we had a cottage house to stay in, and that's how that resolved. But that only lasted a couple of years, and then the relationship ended. Started seeing, hit the Mars, started seeing wife number 3, or who was going to be wife number 3. Didn't know it at the time. But by the time, and there's no main aspects it's going through, that's Mars was in the hexagon holding together. Going through Cancer, Gemini, Cancer, Pentans, and Sag. Then it moved into the hexagram of splitting apart for these, goes into the hexagram of splitting apart. And my marriage, we split up, and I ended up living in the library. We split up. Then as long as I had a girlfriend, and then we split up. My mom visited, and my mom had her world split up, and she was living in Hungary, and she came back and had to move in with me for a while. I had to take care of her. So a lot of different things happened in this, like, it's just my story, but it's, the intensity still build up. This is just looking at the Mars, not looking at the Venus, it's not what I'm doing. So here's Mars hitting the Pluto and the Mercury. My mom died, and I had a prostate operation, no cancer, but they had to cut it down. And then, and in the same time, when I wasn't doing so much, my internal energy went in, and it was hitting Mercury, and I wrote the I Ching book and built up the correspondence that is now the courses that we're going through. So then it moved into Capricorn in 2008. So when Mom had died, I shifted. I was teaching a lot of drum classes then. So I hit Mars, I'm teaching drum classes. Hit Saturn, I did a lecture on declinations to the Canadian Astrology Association, the Canadian Association for Astrological Education, one of the national groups in Canada. And then when it hit the Jupiter, I was tutoring and teaching people in drums. I had trips to Las Vegas. Went into the 5th house, and shortly thereafter I hit the Sun, and I had a 2-week trip to China. So there's a bunch of planets that through Jupiter, Sun, and they're good aspects, but it's really, the energy came out. But this is my inner attitude change that made me ready to go for things. Why stay here when I had a chance to go there? Great, I took it. But it's not the direct Mars from the transits, but it's an inner point coming up that's pushing me to do things. Then it comes up and hit my Pluto. It was 144 degrees. It's a really minor aspect, but I had built a wood henge, and we finished the wood henge, but the guy sold the property, and it was the end of the wood henge. And I started the English webinar series, which is the series we're in now. And then I had to suddenly move out of the place I was living in Aurora for 15 years. I had to find another place, and everything was so expensive. I finally landed where I am. So the big thing is coming up right now. I'm going into Mars, heading to Neptune. And in a certain way, I've been in this new place. I had to move. I wasn't expecting. I've been reorienting my energy, but it's still not very externally, outwardly. It's still a little weaker than it was. I've had diabetes, had different things. I had to start adjusting my behavior around while this Neptune was going on. And this is Mars energy, so it has changed my attitude to what I'm willing to do, what I want willing to do. Yeah, this is still a puzzle right now, but it's going on now. And then once through this, there's a clear run for till 2024. And then it hits this bunch of planet 24, 25. It's the nodes, the Pluto, Mercury, things again. And it goes on. So this is how I work with my progress chart. I really just ran down some of my history through these times and not say a lot of things. I have deep impression of what happened and the implications, why these happened, who was where, what was going on, what was fair, what was being done, what was I doing, what wasn't I doing. I have an inner story inside all of these events. So these events anchor the timeline. And then I have this inner quality reflecting inside of it. So this whole, let's see, 2014, the whole time period where I went into, 2015, when Mars went into the hexagram of providing nourishment. And really in that time period, I had dehydrators, I was drying food, I was making jams, I was making kimchi, I was doing a lot of cooking, making a lot of jams and things too, which put my sugar off the roof and led to my finding out about having diabetes. But now there's no sugar. So, but I really was working with, I had a great kitchen I was working with in that. So until I had to move. So, but that was the nourishment. Still, nourishment is a concern. I had to adjust my diet. It's still a big concern. So, okay.